Alright, so for this week we are going to be talking about solving triangles, their angles and their sides, using sines and cosines, but when they are not right triangles. In these cases, these triangles are called oblique triangles, and they do not have a right angle. So there's the case where it can have three acute angles, like in the first picture, or in the second picture it can have one obtuse and two acute angles. So what we want to do is we want to use the law of sines to solve for these. This is the ratio of the side length to the sine value. And we can set different parts of these equal to each other and then solve that way. So this triangle gives me A is 46 degrees, C is 63 degrees, and little c is 56 inches. So when we are solving for these triangles, we have three pieces of information. It's a combination of sides and angles, but we'll have to solve for the other missing three. So in this one, I'm searching for the missing angle for B, the side length for little a, and the side length for little b. I am going to start for the missing angle first because I have two of my three angles, and I like solving for the easiest things first. So I know a triangle adds up to 180 degrees. And then my two angles are 63 and 46. So I subtract that, and I get 71 degrees. So I'm going to write my answers over here just to keep it nice and organized. So my angle measure for B is 71. Then I'm going to use the law of sines. The only letter I have a side length and an angle for is C. So I'm going to do that. My side length is 56. That goes on top. My angle is 63. So that goes in for the big C. Then I need to solve for little a and little b. It doesn't matter which letter I solve for first. I'm going to solve for A just because it comes first in the alphabet. I do know my angle measure of A is sine of 46 degrees. Okay, so what I want to do here is I want to get my A value alone. To do that, if I only look at the side of the fraction, I need to multiply both sides by sine 46 to get rid of it. So I'm going to rewrite this as A equals, and then it's going to be 56 sine 46 over sine 63. Then what I want to do is type this into my calculator. So if I look, I want to make sure my calculator is in degrees. If I have a newer calculator, it will tell me like this one does. If I don't, I need to go to mode and then make sure the word degree is highlighted and go second mode to go home. Then I want to type this into the calculator. So I have 56 sine 46. I want to make sure that I close off my parentheses so when I type in the division, it doesn't think that's still part of the sine value I'm evaluating for. Then I'm going to divide by sine 63, and this one gives me 45.2. This problem specifically told me we were working with inches, so I'm going to write inches after A. Then I'm going to go ahead and solve for B. It's going to use the same ratio from C because that didn't change. That's still part of the triangle. This time I'm using little b, and the angle measure for B was 71. So I have sine of 71. Then just like before, I want to multiply both sides by sine of 71. So I have B equals 56 times sine of 71 over sine of 63. And then I want to type that into the calculator. This one gives me 59.4. And I forgot to say it, the problems told me where I was rounding. So this one told me to round sides to the nearest inch. Okay, so those are my answers for one. Okay, so that's an example of where I have two angles in a side that is not in between them. Number two is going to be two angles and a side in between them. Okay. So I want to draw my triangle out. It tells me my measure of A is 50 degrees. My measure of C is 33.5. And my value of B is 76. So first thing I want to do here is solve for my angle measure for B. It's going to be 180 minus 50 minus 33.5. After I type that into my calculator, I get 96.5. So I'm going to keep these off to the side too. My B value is 96.5 degrees, and I'm going to go fill it into this missing triangle so I can keep an idea of what I have. So now that I have my three angles, I need to look at which angle has the matching side. I need to solve for A and C. So B is the one I have the matching value for. So it's going to be 76 over sine 96.5. Then I need to solve for another side length. I'm going to pick A because it's in alphabetical order. So I have A over sine of 50. Then this looks just like it did from above. I want to get that 50 to the other side, so I'm going to multiply both sides by sine of 50. I have A equals 76 sine of 50 over sine 96.5. I want to type this into the calculator. And I get, this one wants me to round to the nearest tenth, 58.6. This is a side length, so no degree. Okay. Then I'm going to go do the same thing for the C value for my side length. I have 76 over sine of 96.5 again. This time it's going to be C, and my sine of C was 33.5. I want to get C all alone, so I'm going to multiply both sides by sine of 33.5. And then I want to type that into the calculator so I know what C is. I'm doing 76 times sine of 33.5 divided by sine of 96.5. This gets me 42.2 for my side length here. Okay. The third case of triangles is when I am given two sides and an angle. It can either end up with one triangle, a right triangle, no triangle, or two triangles. So basically one triangle, no, or two. So I need to go and check to make sure my answers work. When I have two triangles, what happens is I can take 180 degrees and subtract the angle the second angle I have found, and that should be able to still be added to the first angle to find a third missing angle. So what I want to do is, I'm going to move this off the screen. I'm going to draw my triangle for number 3. Okay. A is 43 degrees, little a is 81, B is 62. So what I want to do is I'm going to use the law of sines. I am looking for little c and then my two angle measures inside. I have both my a values, so I'm going to start with that. I have 81 over sine of 43. And then I'm going to solve for, I put the b value in the wrong spot. B is always opposite the angle. B. And I didn't want to write the letter B, I wanted to write 62. 62. There we go. Then I have the side length is 62, so that goes on top. And on the bottom, I have sine of angle B. The angle is what I'm solving for. So in this case, I'm going to cross multiply since I don't have a variable on top alone. I'm going to get 81 sine B equals 62 sine 43. What I want to do next is I want to get to sine B by itself, so I'm going to divide by 81 on both sides. I have sine B equals 62 sine 43 over 81. Then to get B by itself, I have to use the inverse sign. So remember, I multiply by the sine inverse to get rid of the sine. And this will end up with just B on the left side. Sine inverse 62 sine of 43 over 81. Then I want to type that into the calculator. Remember to type this in the calculator. You go second and then press sine. And then I'm going to type this whole thing in and make sure it stays in my first set of parentheses. So I'm going to do 62 sine 43, one parentheses, divide 81. And this gives me 31.46. This one wanted me to round angles to the nearest degree. So I am going to have B equals 31 degrees. Okay. Then since I know my B value for my angle, I can go back and plug in for C to find the missing C. No, first I want to double check before I find my C value if it's possible for me to have a second B value. So what I do is I label this B2. I'm going to do 180 minus the 31, which gives me 149. So if I take the 149 and I add it to the 43, it is 192, which is over 180 degrees, so it doesn't work for a second triangle. There's only one triangle solution here. Okay. Then I can solve for C, so I'm going to do 180 minus 43 minus the 31. This gives me 106 degrees. So C equals 106. Okay. Now that I know what C is for the angle measure, I can go ahead and plug into the law of sines to find for the side length. So I'm going to use 81 over sine of 43 again for my A value. Then for my C's, I don't know the side length, but I do know this angle measure. So I write it like that. Then I want to rewrite it, so I have C equals 81 times sine of 106 over sine 43. I type that into the calculator. And this gives me 114.2 for my little c side length. Okay. Same thing on number 4, it's going to give me an angle and two sides. So I want to draw out my triangle. My angle is 75 for A, little a is 51, little b is 71. So I'm going to start off by doing law of sines to solve for little b is over here. I do not know why I keep putting little b in the wrong spot. This is little c. Okay, so I'm going to start off for solving for my angle of b. So I have 51 over sine of 75 for my a values. For my b, I know my side length is 71, and my angle measure I just have as b right now. I want to cross multiply, so I get 51 sine, 51 looks like an S, 51 sine b equals 71 sine 75. I want to divide both sides by 51, which gets me sine b equals 71 sine 75 divided by 51. I want to find my sine inverse of this. And then I'm going to rewrite it out. So I have b equals the sine inverse of 71 sine 75 over 51. And then I'm going to type that into my calculator. So sine inverse. Okay, so my calculator gives me an error. When I try to find the sine inverse of a value and it gives me an error, that means there is no triangle. Okay, so we found out the case where it gives us no triangle. Now our last case is going to be two triangles. So this one is telling me to solve the triangle, and it gives me my angle measure of A, my little a value, and my b value, which I have correctly placed this time. So I want to search for my little c value, my angle of b, and my angle of c. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to start off by setting up my law of sines for A. So I have 54 over sine of 40. And I'm going to search for the angle measure of B first because it comes first in the alphabet. So I'm going to have 62 over sine of B. I'm going to cross multiply. So I have 54 sine of B equals 62 sine of 40. Then what I want to do is I want to get sine of B all by itself. So I'm going to divide by 54 on both sides. I'm left with sine of B on the left and 62 sine 40 divided by 54. I want to get B isolated, so I'm going to multiply by the sine inverse. And then this gives me B equals the sine inverse of 62 sine 40 over 54. I'm going to type that in my calculator. This gives me, the problem wants me to round to the nearest degree, so this gives me 48 degrees. I am going to write this over here. Okay. I also need to check to see if I can have a second B value. So what I do here is I'm going to do B2, 180 minus 48, which gives me 132. Now I need to check to see if 132 plus 40 is less than 180. So if I have 132 plus 40, it equals 172. Less than 180? Let's write this in red. So I have a second triangle. Okay. I'm also going to write my value of B2 off to the side now, and I'm going to make this B B1 so I can keep my B's straight. Okay. I'm going to solve for C1, the angle for my first triangle. I have 180 minus 40 minus my first B1 was 48. When I subtract those, I get 92 degrees. So my C1 is 92 degrees. Then what I want to do is I want to find my side length for C1. So I'm going to plug into the law of sines. I have 54 over sine of 40 times little c1 over sine of 92. I want to multiply by the sine of 92 to get rid of it. So I have 54 sine of 92 over sine of 40 equals c1. Then I want to type that into my calculator. And I get, side lengths are to the nearest tenth, so I'd round up because of the 5 to the right of the 9, but that rounds up to 84. So for little c1, I get 84 as my side length. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for c2. I need to do 180 minus 40, because that's from the original triangle. And then this time I want to subtract my B2, which is 132. When I type that all in, I get 8. So my C2 is 8. Then I'm going to put it into the law of sines, just like I did for the C1. So I have 54 over sine of 40 equals little c2 over sine of 8. I want to multiply both sides by sine of 8 to get rid of it. So I have 54 sine of 8 over sine of 40 equals c2. Then I want to type that into the calculator. 54 sine of 8 divided by sine of 40 gets me 11.7. So my little C2 value is 11.7. These are my 6 answers. So when I'm solving for 2 triangles, I have 6 answers. Each of my triangles I'm solving for multiplies by 3.